Okay, it worked. I was having operator error. Okay, let's see how I get Dani on here. We're gonna do a live Q&A. I've never done this before. We're gonna have Dani Conway on. Live Q&A, all things fat loss, hormone, whatever questions you have. I don't know how to add her. Let's see, I see a people button. Dani, you'll have to request to be on this with me because I don't see how to. Oh, there we go. Dani's watching. Bring them on video. Okay, it says it's adding you, and now I'm like starting to sweat in here. Okay, I think that worked. Did we do it? Can I hear you?
We did it. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. I was just making sure there was no echo. For a second, I thought there was an echo. I was like, oh God, this is going to be a long hour.
I can barely hear you. I'm going to put in my headphones, and hopefully that doesn't screw everything up.
Okay.
Because I can barely hear what you're saying, and my volume's all the way up. I'm sure I did something wrong. They're in a tangled mess. I love that for me. Piece of floss in there. Okay, so while I get this sorted, we are, oh, Adrian's here. Having Dani on, I'm actually surprised that you even wanted to do this with me because unfortunately for Dani, we are close friends, which means that I have access to her cell phone, text number, and I'm constantly bugging her. So the fact that she wanted me to bug her live is amazing.
So funny.
Any questions anybody has, please put them in the chat. I have 8,000 questions I can ask you while we wait for anybody else. Let's see. I am plugged in. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, actually now I can hear you way better than I could a second ago. So now I can turn my volume down.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to say what is on my mind right now. There's so many things, but what comes to mind is the haters, if you will, are like, carnivore is going to tank your hormones. It's going to cause low thyroid, your adrenals, like it's just too much, and that women need carbs. So I'm wondering your thoughts on that because here I am with some, slightly low thyroid and sex hormones. I mean, you do my labs. Um, so I'm like questioning, did carnivore cause this? Because if carnivore is so magical, why did this even happen in the first place? So, what are your thoughts on that?
So I think first, I want to work backwards because you actually don't know what would have happened at this point if you hadn't been doing carnivore for how many days now? 700 or 900 or something like that.
Yeah, whatever the 3 years is. Yeah, so
Whatever.
it could be like coincidental, right?
And so with that, we're also talking about as we approach the stage of life, which is perimenopause, which a lot of things can change. Regular life stresses changes a lot of things. So that's one thing I think that we don't realize is what would have happened if I wasn't doing carnivore for X amount of days, months, or years before this? What would my hormones look like then? What would my health look like then? What would everything look like then? So I think that we don't really think about that to begin with. And there are changes that happen as a natural byproduct of the stage of life. And, to think that, and, talk about haters, they can hate me for this too. To think that any diet is going to be 100% perfect and everyone is going to walk away with perfectly balanced hormones and all of that stuff. Yeah, there's a percentage of people that food only will make a difference, whatever that correct balance of food is for that individual person. But there's more people that need more support and other things to work on to really be optimized than just food. Food is absolutely the foundation for everything that we do. That's what I've been working on for the last 20 years. That's how I teach. That's how I coach. That's how I've done with my own self. Have I needed more over the years? 100%. Have my clients needed more? Yes. Do women come to me who have been carnivore for 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, maybe longer than that? I also, side note, full disclosure, work with clients who are low carb and keto as well, and always help them optimize wherever they fall on that spectrum. So that was a very long answer to your question, but I think that setting a foundation and sort of a an overall kind of from the 60,000 foot view, what might be happening, I think that's important.
Okay. And well, what about the argument that we need carbs for to support our hormones? And just to be transparent, I've talked about this a little bit on my YouTube. I recently, and this is a whole other topic I can talk about because it's not really going well. But I added back in some fruit because my cortisol is like low in the morning. I was having a hard time like getting going and having energy. Added some fruit and that helped my energy. So now I'm like, okay, should I not be carnivore? And a lot of other people are like, I added fruit back in or some carbs and they felt better too. So like what's up with that?
So, I mean, at any point in time, carbs are going to give you a very quick energy source. So, if there's something going on, excuse me, if there's something going on metabolically where your body is not able to access fat as a fuel source for whatever reason, then adding carbs back is going to give you 100% a quick energy source. Then I think we have to look at, the person, can they handle the carbs? How much carbs are we talking about? Yada yada. In terms of answering the question, like, do carbs help, or does a lack of carbs tank hormones or adrenals or whatever the case is? Here's, and this is so hard because I hear this all the time. I've heard this for years, and here's what I can say. I've never seen the addition of carbs back into someone's diet help all of a sudden transform all of the things that they have going on. I, again, when clients start with me, most of them, 99% of them at this point in time, have already been some form of low carb for some longer period of time. I do not take them off of low carb. If they want to eventually add carbs back in, I want to get them to a place that's sustainable and give them the best results as possible that they can have. But never have I seen a client who has been carnivore before get labs, figure out what's going on, go through a protocol, and not improve on a carnivore diet. So, what I'm trying to say is, if in fact it was the carbs, then none of my programs would ever work because all of those clients successfully, they end successfully and they're still carnivore or whatever form of low carb is what they feel is sustainable for them. So I can't say, based on my own experience, that carbs have been a magic answer to fix everyone's hormone problems.
Okay, that makes sense. But is it a bad idea to be adding them in to get that energy? Like, in a way, I feel like it kind of is a bad idea because it has sent me on a little bit of a spiral lately, but it's also giving me energy. So is that like, should I not be doing this?
So that's where I feel like it's a catch 22. And that's where I feel like each person has to look at their own individual scenario. So you just said things have, been a little bit, wonky or whatever. So if someone's adding carbs back, that's going to be a trigger for them to continue adding more carbs back in the, big scheme of things, then is adding carbs really solving their problem? Probably not. If adding a quarter cup of berries or a half a cup of berries once a day helps them with energy and they can still maintain whatever level of macros, nutrients, not going off the rails kind of thing, then it can be helpful. But each person has to evaluate that. And someone who's, a carb and sugar addict probably shouldn't be adding large quantities of carbs. Now, I'm going to go so far as, dare I even bring this up? Then the other whole side of the, what am I trying to say? The other camp out there right now, so that there's no elephants in the room, is the freaking sugar diet. And people claiming that if they just go on sugar fasting and sugar diet and fruit fasting for days on end, that that's going to solve their carb and sugar addiction and that they'll eventually get to a place where they can stop eating so much carbs and sugars. Most people who are carb and sugar addicts know that they cannot just eat fruit endlessly and have that be the solution to their problem. So I don't want to get into the weeds on that or, anything, but I think it's like important to bring all the things in all the context and know that there's nuance and context needed for every single scenario.
Yeah, and I will say, as far as the fruit, I'm realizing now that I'm not going to binge on fruit. I always thought I would, and the first time I had it, like I kept thinking about it all day, so I felt like that was like dangerous, but that's not triggering in and of itself. But I
Hmm.
think the mental thing of it, like, oh, I'm allowing some fruit in because it makes me feel better. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm eating carbs, so I may as well have a bite of this and a bite of that. And that's kind of where like it snowballs. So for
Right.
me, it's not totally the fruit in itself, it's the mindset that's been with it where like, I'm just snowballing. In the last few days, I mean, I've not been on track at all. But then it's like a catch 22 because it's like now I have my energy back, but I'm not doing good in the food department. So if someone is not feeling that great, I mean, besides like working with you, and we can talk about that as far as like, because a lot of people say we shouldn't have supplements, but as far as
Right.
just like the food side of things,
Yeah.
like what can we do if someone doesn't want to add carbs? Like maybe you
Yeah.
could add like avocado or something where that might not be triggering, but if someone wants to stay carnivore but they're having a lack of energy, like what could we do in the meantime until these supplements are like fixing us?
Sure. So, and this even goes like if maybe someone has no desire to have any supplements, and that's totally fine. I think that we really need to look at macros in the sense of like ratios of protein and fat. So how much, so aside from ratio, also aside from ratios, also the quantity of food that we're eating. So too much or too little. And I say too much because there's a lot of like eat till you're full, eat this many pounds of meat in the carnivore space. I cannot tell you how many women follow those, with good intention, follow those recommendations. But as soon as I actually get them to eat a little bit less, because maybe their goal is weight loss and fat loss, and we determine that they really do need a little bit less, I can't tell you how many people report to me that they actually have more energy because their digestion isn't as bogged down. They're not trying to maybe a smaller eating window too. Like they're not trying to stuff all their food in one small eating window, even if it's 2 meals in like a 6 hour window versus 2 meals in even an 8 or 10 hour window. So those things I see as places where people can make adjustments. The type of meat that they're eating. So if someone is eating a lot of red meat, ruminant meat, beef, lamb, venison, especially as the weather changes, like experiment with some seafood, experiment with some chicken, experiment with, of course, everything that's tolerated. So if you don't tolerate it, I'm not telling you to eat something you don't tolerate. Change, those meats that tend to be a little bit heavier in nature. As the seasons change, sometimes our bodies change too. So experiment with the variety and the types of meat that you're eating. The other thing is hydration and electrolytes. So how many times have we heard only drink when you're thirsty? Don't, to the extreme, some carnivores are saying don't even use electrolytes. But also there's a lot on the spectrum of hydration and electrolytes that I think need to be optimized for energy and can be kind of played with, if you will, for energy. And then fat sources too. So, yes, we think protein and fat carnivore, animal based fat protein carnivore. So maybe, someone might respond differently to duck fat, bacon grease, and ghee than they might to butter, ribeye trimmings, and some other type of rendered fat. So we tend to group a lot of things together with carnivore, but there are really a lot of places where people can kind of experiment getting into the weeds if they don't ever want to do supplements or labs, you know. So that's kind of, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of things to play with. But okay, then the argument, even that gluconeogenesis is too hard on our body. And that, oh, I was going to ask something else about that. um that especially if we're like going through something or our hormones aren't great, that it's just another stress on the body, and that maybe it would be helpful to add some carbs or even like the week before our cycle. But then I mean, I don't know much about the science. I just recently saw something where it's like our body is always doing gluconeogenesis, not like no matter what diet you're having. So what are your thoughts on that just being too taxing on our body?
I mean, again, if it was too taxing on our body, how would my clients be able to stay carnivore and see such dramatic changes in their hormones, their gut health, and their liver detoxification through the use of protocols to direct their bodies on what it should be doing, and yet they're still eating the same? If the diet was playing that much of a negative role, no supplement can outperform a diet, right? So all those things that are just there to sort of direct, like the body's on a detour. They're just there to help direct the body. Hey, go this way instead of that way, right? So no, again, no protocol, no supplement, no peptide is going to outperform the diet. So that's the foundation, and I just don't see that as being taxing in terms of like what you're talking about. If it was so taxing, then people wouldn't get results otherwise.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, going to, I just want to add, if anybody has any questions for Dani, please leave them in the chat. This is Q&A for you guys. It's not supposed to be a live coaching session for me, but I have so many questions that that's fine if it ends up being that way. Okay.
I think there are some, so I can't see the comments, I don't think, but maybe you can on your side. I've just seen a couple pop up.
Oh, really? I'm not seeing that. All I see is like
Oh,
it shows the name and is watching.
okay. So on the bottom, I had to exit something out, but I'm seeing the comments if you want me to read them.
Oh, I wonder, there's a button that says remove. I'm afraid it's going to remove you.
Okay, don't do that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't
Wait,
see any questions.
okay, that's weird. So what if you tap on the screen and just start scrolling like you're gonna scroll from the bottom? Did they pop up?
It just shows blah 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 is watching. It just shows
Okay,
everyone who's here.
that's weird. So I can see them. So let's see. Adrian's here. Eileen, we have a handful of people on. Oh, Adrian says our faces are so close that we both have great skin. You win the award today, Adrian. Okay, Jeanette says, I tried adding fruit and my blood work is not good, but my thyroid is looking better. Just wish my scale would move. So I think we've kind of addressed multiple things on this. I think that, you know, when you say blood work is not good, what was it doing before? What's it doing now? What does your carnivore look like? How much fruit have you added in? I think all those things can play a role. Adrian says, what about our ancestors who only ate carnivore seasonally? If it works for you to only eat carnivore seasonally, then I think that that's realistic. That goes back to what we were saying earlier, is knowing yourself, knowing if you can add other foods. Courtney brought up the mindset aspect of it, and I think that's huge with looking at, okay, am I saying I can add back in fruit or carbs, but is that the lizard brain opening the door for the rest of the, whatever else to pop back in? And in the long run, is that really going to be serving that person on an individual basis? I'm all for seasonal. Whoops, where did they go? Oh shit, now the comments are gone. There they are. Okay, they're back now. Excuse my language. I hope there's no kids watching. Okay. Adrian says, I think it's taxing to do it more than seasonal because our ancestors would have only done this when plants weren't available. I mean, I think it depends on the person. It depends on their digestive status. There's so many more toxins in the environment now than there were years ago. If it were more taxing to do it all the time versus seasonally, there wouldn't be anyone thriving on carnivore. So I think that that's another factor to look at is, within the individual context of a person, and what are we talking about in terms of thriving and not thriving. So.
And while you look for more, I will just add as far as carbs to add in if you don't want to be having plants, like, animal-based carbs, like yogurt, milk, scallops, surprisingly have a bit.
Scallops,
Um,
mussels. So
yeah,
yeah, so and that's where I would start someone if they are saying, oh, I want to add carbs. Obviously raw milk would be ideal. Kefir has a few carbs. Yogurt, like you said, scallops, mussels. Obvious,
your
obviously,
your
sorry,
dogs.
dogs, things are falling. I don't know. Obviously, someone might say like, okay, let's be real. Scallops are a little bit expensive, so maybe that's not an option. But eggs have a couple carbs here and there. Mussels, you can get mussels for a little bit less than scallops. Oysters have some carbs. You can get like canned oysters. So there are ways to do it and to experiment with animal-based foods before you just go down to the fruit or even avocado. Fermented veggies for some people. I know that's plant, but
But it's a little different. Yeah. What would be like a good carb amount to play with? Like, I'm hearing if you're going to do it, well, you could have some every day, or you can carb cycle, or you can have them like just the week before your period. I'm hearing like if you're going to add in plants and it be like some fruit and rice, like 75 to 100 carbs. But if you're doing that animal based, that seems like that's a lot of milk and yogurt. So would like 20, 30 carbs be enough to see any differences in energy or even?
yeah, I mean, I would start for someone who's been lower carb, let's call lower carb anywhere from 0 to 15 as a range. I would not bump them up to 100 grams of carbs. I would start with, 10 to 20, per day at a time, and then kind of go from there. So yes, you're correct. Um, Milk and yogurt, you're only gonna like get so much before you end up having to add a lot of those foods. So that's where I would start for someone who's especially carnivore, and then can kind of go from there. Now, you know, again, depends on toleration. If someone's looking to add a higher amount of carbs but a low amount of food overall,
That was
sorry.
amazing. We're gonna have to take a sound clip of that.
Um, you know, Depending on their toleration, like you could add a tablespoon of sweet potato and get a lot of carbs for, you know, instead of adding a whole salad and getting less. So we're very in the weeds now, and I'm sure someone's going to take this out of context, but you could also, the whole point is you could do very small amount of high glycemic foods if you're trying to just get a little bit of carbs at one meal or at two meals.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Are there any more questions? I don't know why I cannot see them.
Oh, let's see. Here we go. Um, So there's a couple of, okay, so I'll read these questions. Remember, we can't analyze blood work on this Zoom. I mean, whatever, we're on Facebook Live. Okay, sorry. What's the best way to bring glucose down when the morning reading continues to be over 100? So this is going to depend on why that reading is over 100. So first, I would start looking at making sure that you're not doing too much fasting, making sure that you're getting regular meals, making sure that you're eating enough overall throughout the day, 2 to 3 meals a day, making sure that you are, then experiment with maybe eating further away from bed versus closer to bedtime, and seeing if that one of those helps your glucose stay more stable overnight. Um, and then we kind of get into the weeds of what's going on with the thyroid, what else is going on with the adrenals, is there gut stuff going on that could be kind of spiking cortisol and blood sugar in the morning time. So making sure that your nighttime routine, your blue light glasses, all the things that we all hear everyone talking about and have for a while now, but all of those things are dialed in, and then kind of going from there with looking for a potential root cause of further root cause of insulin resistance. Okay, triglycerides and A1C way up since January, HDL dropped, glucose all over, stricter carnivore before I experimented. Also, my period was so bad. Now going back to strict carnivore to see it was an experiment, and honestly, I don't regret it. Good to see I was healing in all other areas. So great. I hope that the experiment goes well. Cheryl, when you say gut health, what issues are you talking about? I feel my gut health is fine. I don't remember the exact context of this comment, so let me know. Adrian says, I think I asked you this, but I don't remember. Has anyone who's done this for 10 years added carbs back and were very sensitive? So I'm worried, just like when we don't use our gallbladder for a long time, we get sludge. If we don't use our pancreas, it'll all get sluggish and have consequences. So this is a little bit of what, full disclosure, Dr. Sibus talks about this as this whole insulin suppression thing. And I think this is where the value of, you know, adding animal carbs, if you're concerned about that, like if you're concerned about it, add some carbs here and there. Courtney, there was something you said earlier, and this is what I was going to answer. So you were talking about like how to add the carbs back in. One of the things that I do recommend is like do it on more active days. Don't do it on a sedentary day. Do it around workouts, things like that. So be very strategic about it. You had mentioned carb cycling. So I think carb cycling is that older term where it's just like kind of on and off, on and off. There's not really a plan, so to speak, for that. Um, See, before our cycles, we do become more insulin resistant. So when I help women cycle their macronutrients based on their cycle, I'm not necessarily adding carbs before their cycle per se. I'm playing with their protein and fat ratios a little bit more. And sometimes for some women it's more fat, for some women it's more protein. For me, it was always more protein before my cycle, sometimes more fat, or sometimes just kind of depended. But all that to say, sometimes carbs, just because we're craving the carbs doesn't before the cycle doesn't mean it's carbs that we need. So I think that's important to realize too. Electrolytes and hydration, those can drop before our period. B vitamins can drop. So like liver capsules or liver, if we're completely carnivore, that's another approach that I don't hear talked about a lot. And then just cycling the overall quantity of food up a little bit that week or two prior to the cycle starting versus just adding carbs. So a few more things there. I kind of just went all over the place, but so I was saying, based on Adrian's question, um, and the insulin suppression thing that Dr. Sivas had released some videos about, I would say if that's something you're concerned about, start with the animal carbs, add those back in. There's a lot of influencers out there talking about carbs, low carb is terrible for you. It does all these things, et cetera, et cetera. You guys, there's thousands of people out there that have had amazing results from any form of low carb. So again, I think we have to just kind of think about this when we start getting into the weeds of this person said this and this person said that. Of course, something on, everything's individual. If you feel like you're too low carb and it's not working for you, then start with, milk and kefir and seafood. And, if you tolerate plants, whatever the plant is, whether it's fermented veggies or a tablespoon of a sweet potato, we just have to remember, like, excuse me, at some point, we're not carnivore anymore if we're adding these foods back in. And that might be okay. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I just have a problem when people are like, oh, I'm carnivore, but I'm eating sweet potato 3 times a week. Like, that's not carnivore. And I'm also, full disclosure, kind of on the devil's advocate side of things, I am very much about not worrying about labels. And I teach this in my online groups too. But I think that we just have to also be clear in our intention that if we are eating sweet potatoes multiple times a week, and that's a food we're going to keep in our diet, we're not carnivore anymore. So I think we still need to like have those definitions and just know what each, what they mean.
Yeah, I think in a way, like if you're going to use labels, they need to be accurate because people are going to use you as like a guideline. So if you're saying that you're carnivore, then your meals need to be shown carnivore
Right.
and not have, plants on them. But yeah, if or don't use labels, and that's fine. But yeah, I think the labels are more for guidance for other people.
Sure.
Any more comments in there?
Oops. There are, but do you have any more questions? So maybe we'll go back to your questions for a minute and then we can go back to the
Um,
chat.
yeah, let me think. There was like so many. I feel like the carb thing was the main thing because that's where my mind is at right now, that everyone telling me that I need to eat carbs. So that, yeah, I've just honestly been doubting carnivore, at least for like long term 24/7. Just reading that, oh, like having some carbs in the summer and keto carnivore in the winter. while you're hibernating. So, yeah, that's just been my mental struggle lately, just knowing like is what I'm doing right because of where my labs were and not having that morning energy. It's just been messing with my head. And for the
Mhm.
first time, you know, these last couple weeks, I'm just not feeling confident with how
Right.
I've been eating.
Do you wanna do you wanna talk about any of the mold stuff?
Yeah, we can. Okay, so that's like another thing is if we do have mold issues, I was also told that having carbs helps to detox that, especially, I can't remember if this person said if you have the mother effer gene or SIRS or both. It was like one of those was said, because I have both, so I don't remember which one, that the carbs can actually be beneficial in helping to detox the mold. Do you think that's true?
Um, so I don't. I mean, I've helped plenty of clients with mold detox protocols that do have methylation struggles or issues that have not needed to add carbs back in order to detox from the mold. So, in my experience, the mold detox has to do everything with what they're doing in the protocol. Are they living in it? Are they doing binders? Are they supporting their hormones? All of that kind of thing versus the, you know, adding carbs isn't going to get rid of mold per se. So that's it's a tough one for me to just say like, yeah, adding carbs is going to help the mold. Now, on the methylation side of things, again, like there's plenty of ways to support methylation, MTHFR. I have it too, you know. I don't even tolerate methylated B vitamins. I've told you, I think we've talked about this. So I can't even take the vitamins that you're supposed to take if you have the the MTHFR gene mutation. So how do I deal with that otherwise? Well, I do take some B vitamins, but I work on all my detox pathways and do all the detox strategies that I talk about. And that's how I help my body to detoxify the way that it should and needs to. And I've had success that way. So, again, it's about, and I'm sure there's people out there saying that doesn't work, protocols don't work, this or that. If you've experienced that happening, then whatever whatever was done was not correct for what your body needed. Trust me, I get a lot of people that come to me that they've been to this practitioner and that practitioner, and this didn't work, that didn't work. They show me their protocols of why are you taking this, why are you taking that. They have no idea. A lot of different like things around that. I don't want to go on, trying not to go like down a rabbit hole here. But I just back to your question, I've not seen, again, carbs be the answer to mold, honestly.
Okay. I'm glad you brought up the detox pathways again, because that's something I'm trying to work on more. I'm really bad about it because honestly, I think 2 years ago, or at one point when I was in your weight loss accelerator group, and your like castor oil pack, bought the stuff and I haven't used it. It's been 2 years. But I have been going to the sauna, and because I am not a sweater, like I will be in there. It's like 13 minutes and I'm just starting to like glisten and everyone's dripping. When I was consistent though, I got that time down to like 8 minutes. So I don't feel like a lot of people, even myself included, because I'm not doing it, like realize how important that is, right? I'm assuming it's important to get things flowing.
Sure.
And what some like things we could do, like dry brushing, like what are all the tools for that?
Yeah. So I actually have in my monthly group, the Wellness Collective, I actually have there's one recording that people can have access to where I went through all the detox strategies. It was like a detox strategy workshop. So infrared sauna, regular sauna is good, infrared sauna is better. Dry brushing, Epsom salt baths. If you tend towards diarrhea, then you may not want to always use Epsom salt. You can use like a food grade sea salt, which you can get off of Amazon. Why? Because the Epsom salt, good news, bad news, it's going to help move things along and move things out of your system. But if you're already prone to diarrhea, you want to be careful with that, and that's where the sea salt baths can be helpful. Um, Self-lymphatic drainage. So if you go on YouTube and just search self-lymphatic drainage, there's a lot of information out there. But basically, like your drainage points, like so your collarbone here, the armpits, belly, like on the bikini line, like just kind of gently rubbing, on the bikini line basically. Those are all, and they sound very woo-woo, and it sounds like if you were to sit here and just go like this for 5 minutes and then like this and then do the belly pat, things like that, it sounds very woo-woo, like that's crazy. But I promise you, if you do that every day for a few days, you're going to start to notice it, and it's going to start to help keeping things flowing, opening up those drainage pathways. um, Dry brushing, like I probably said 3 times already, sauna, baths, vibration plate. So obviously that's something that you've got to invest in, a vibration plate. I think they're great. So those are castor oil pack, of course. So that's a pack that's worn over your right side liver, gallbladder area. Start with an hour before bed. Goal can be to sleep with it on overnight. So it actually can help stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is going to also help with sleep. And then, waking up in the morning, you should have things move the way they, should move very well. And all of these things can be helpful just on carnivore in general, because people tend to say like, oh, I just poop once a week on carnivore. That's totally normal. That is not normal. We have things like estrogen metabolism and toxins that need to be leaving the body on a daily basis. And all of these things can be, helpful to kind of get things moving. And then you never want to do any detox protocols or binders if you're not pooping regularly and these detox channels aren't already open. And back to your comment about like the 13 minutes in the sauna, I think that 10 to 15 minutes, that kind of range to get into a sauna and start sweating, I think that's pretty normal. I wouldn't necessarily say that you're in bad condition, so to speak, if it took you 13 minutes versus 8 minutes. Certainly, if the time improves that you can start sweating, that's great. But I would say on an average for, most people, I think 10 to 15 minutes, especially if it's not an infrared sauna, if it's a regular sauna, so the type of heat is going to make a big difference as well. Adrian just said I'm pro coffee enemas, so that's kind of like usually a next level. People that are just starting their detox journey with detox strategies aren't always going to be like ready to jump into doing coffee enema. And yes, it is exactly what it sounds like for anyone that doesn't know. But it helps open up the the hepatic portal vein that connects the liver to the gut. Can be helpful for many reasons. So yeah, those are just a very fast overview of the detox strategies.
Okay, well, I have a question on that. Is detox, like, is that only having to do with poop? Like, what if you're pooping fine? Are there other benefits to doing this? And how do you know you're getting those benefits if you're already pooping good?
Yeah, so we detox through our poop, urine, breath, and sweat, right? So 4 ways. And if you're, having skin issues, pimples, acne, breakouts, that, you might be pooping regularly, but maybe your detox system is struggling in other ways. So, from a long-term health perspective, most people that are within our space, whether it's carnivore or low carb, they're usually pretty, um, let's say, conscious of doing things a different way for longevity, health overall, etc. So I think that any of these strategies can be helpful for someone who, is looking to optimize gut health, hormones, whatever the thing is, even if they're pooping regularly.
Okay, sounds good. Are there any other questions that came in? I saw one go by, but I don't think that's the only comment I've seen.
Yes, there's a couple. So, Adrian asked, do you really think glutathione helps open the detox pathways? I do really think that it helps.
What is that, a supplement?
So, glutathione is a supplement. Glutathione is our body's most important antioxidant. So, it is going to, be like a precursor for detoxification. It actually is something that gets tested on the Dutch test. So, if anyone ever runs a Dutch test, there is a glutathione marker on there to look at as well. Let's see. Jennifer says, everybody's body is made differently. I want to add fruits and honey back into my diet eventually. Awesome. Let's see. And I think, John, I lost 25 pounds, 27 pounds on the carnivore diet. Congrats, John. Okay, yeah, so there's a couple of questions. Let's see. Let me go back.
I feel like a horrible host. I can't even read the dang questions
That's
for
so
you.
weird. All right. Been carnivore, meat, eggs, dairy with meals, 74 days, 3 pounds up and down as far as the loss goes. No change in the way clothes fit. No major energy or health change either help. Okay. So when we start with weight, then I want to know the first thing I recommend doing if you're not doing it already is tracking and making sure you can see what you're actually getting. Are you getting 3,000 calories and your body only needs 1,500 a day? Or are you getting 900 calories because you're full and carnivore so satiating and your body needs 2,500 calories a day? So I like to have clients do what I call reverse tracking, which means eat based on your regular eating patterns and track your meals after you eat them. Do that for 3 to 5 days and see what your average is, and then go from there with making adjustments. If your protein ratio seems higher, then I would maybe lower it and increase the fat and experiment with that for a couple of weeks and see if that moves the needle. If your fat ratio is higher and your protein is lower, then up your protein and decrease your fat a little bit and see if that moves the needle. If your, like I said, energies or calories are, let's say, above 2,000, maybe, eat a little bit less than that. If they're, at 1,200, maybe eat a little bit more. So those are things you can start with to start looking at. If you're not moving your body, so walking, resistance training, I would always prefer that someone adds movement before they add movement before you reduce food. So my goal is eat more and weigh less, not eat less and weigh less. So eat more, move more kind of thing. So move more and then, decide which of those adjustments that you're going to work on and then kind of go from there. As far as energy goes, that goes back to the hydration and electrolyte conversation that we had earlier. So make adjustments there. So that should give you just a few things to start with. Speaking of, what is your suggested excuse me, I can't read, suggested fat to protein ratio, and what is the recommended protein amount to start with? So this is very general, but I tend to start most of my women clients 70% fat, 30% protein. If you're eating enough, that should definitely be, enough protein. But I would look at all the adjustments that I just talked about for the previous question would apply here. Start at 70 to 30, and then the amount of protein is going to depend on what your total intake is. And then, as far as you're picking an amount of protein, I think starting with your ideal body weight in grams of protein is a great place to start, and then you're going to have to just make adjustments. All right, eating 2,400 calories, feel great, energy, libido, can't lose weight, drop macros from 2,400 no energy, lose some weight, but then start to gain again if I do it for long. Suggestions. Any suggestions? More protein. Okay, so all the suggestions that I just talked about would apply for this as well. So yeah, that's what I would say. Can you touch on the benefits of castor oil? I also am in the boat where I bought it and I'm super confused on how and when and how often to use it. Okay, so I don't even have it in here, but this is what a castor oil pack looks like. I'll show you the box. So this is the pack right here. This is the brand Queen of the Thrones that I prefer. I don't have no more affiliation with them. You can, I've heard that they're actually cheaper on their website than they are on Amazon, even though we like things to be delivered super quickly. So benefits, again, sleep, as well as stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system, as well as liver, gallbladder, digestion, keeping things moving, etc., etc. I would start with wearing it 2 to 3 times a week, maybe 20 to 30 minutes before bed. If you have any cramping, pain, have to run to the bathroom, that's your body saying, oh, that's how long we should be wearing it for by now. The goal would be to work up to sleeping with it on, and then, if you take it off in the middle of the night, you take it off. But that is a great way to start. And if you want my longer detox strategy workshop, you got to join the Wellness Collective.
Real quick though, do you just rub it on your stomach and that's to like protect it from getting on your clothes, or are you putting it on that pad?
Good question. So this pad actually, it's got like a felt lining on the inside and it's kind of like nylon on the outside. So you only need like 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons kind of drizzled down the pad, pat it together, and then put the pad on your skin.
Okay.
Um, okay, so I already mentioned ideal weight in pounds when calculating protein. Okay, there's a peptide question. Do I dare ask it? Uh,
Yes.
Apologize if this has been asked, but for peptides, is there just a general one you would suggest, not for weight loss, but just for overall energy and good for you? Sorry, I joined late. So we have not talked peptides yet. Um, so I actually, Linnell, go watch my stories. I talked a little bit about this last night. With choosing peptides, with choosing peptide stacks, this is, like you said, Courtney, like this is a whole other video. But you have to think of looking at your goals, synergy for stacking peptides, and what your priority is. So it's way too much for me to go into right now. But start with the stories I posted last night on Instagram, and then let me know if you have questions.
And just to add, like peptides are so much more than just GLP-1 weight
Yeah.
loss. There isn't there like hundreds or I don't even
Yes,
know,
thank you.
but
No, thank you for saying that because we should actually get into that just for the sake of the whole GLP conversation, is that you can have tremendous results using peptides and never even touch a GLP peptide. So there's cellular health, which is going to help with energy. There's other peptides for, insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance, or helping you become more insulin sensitive from insulin resistant. There's muscle building, other fat loss, sleep, all the things. There is crossover with different peptides too, which is why you really want to kind of work with someone who knows what they're doing and not just like start to, oh, I'm going to add 5 peptides and see what happens. So hopefully that helps. And I do deep dive in on peptides in my community as well. So
awesome. Okay, well, why don't we tell everybody like how to work with you, what your offers are, and all
sure.
those kinds of things. Because
Thank you.
Dani is who I do like my labs with. I just did the Dutch test. I'm on a protocol with her. Started it last August, stopped, back on it. So I probably like your worst client, honestly. Like I am aware of like how annoying I probably am.
Oh my
But Dani's
gosh.
amazing. So highly recommend her. So yeah, rattle off all the ways people can work with you.
Sure. So, first of all, I always want to say I do a ton of Q&A on my Instagram on a weekly basis. I try to answer, some kind of questions from my DMs or whatever, even daily. So that's Dani Conway official. My group program, so my weight loss accelerator program, that's my 7-week weight loss course. I run that program 3-ish times a year. It's a live program. It's not recorded. I do all the videos live. It's a live interaction, live coaching within the group. And then I also have my monthly, which is the Wellness Collective. So this is a place where we get to do deep dives beyond just diet, beyond carnivore. I go into everything from hormones and adrenals and thyroid and peptides and gut health. You get to ask questions. Like, for example, tonight's Q&A is actually clarity Q&A session. So I just really want to help women kind of get to whatever their next level is, and just kind of going beyond the diet, beyond carnivore, whatever approach that they're doing. And then my website, Nutrition the Natural Way. I work with clients, of course, one-on-one, lab work, functional testing, all kinds of innovative science-backed protocols. I'm big on this, metabolic nutrition and science side of things as well. So always looking at labs, making sure that, the labs match the client and their complaints and the protocol and the plan and all the things that, that we do in between. So that's just a little bit of an overview.
Awesome. So just one thing though, as far as like the protocol and the supplements, because there's a lot of people that are like, you shouldn't be doing any of
Yeah.
that. But I also want to say like you also, this isn't like a lifelong thing. Like here's all the supplements you're taking the rest of your life. Like you have a plan and an exit plan. So I don't know if you wanted to touch on that at
Yes.
all.
Yes. So that's actually a really good point. Number one, a lot of women come to me, they've been given a list of things to take, and I'll say, number one, why are you taking these things? And they're like, I don't know. And then I'm like, how long are you supposed to be taking these for? I don't know. They didn't tell me like when I should stop. I'm like, makes my head explode, first of all. Second of all, so with protocols, with supplements, all of that is secondary, building on the foundation of the diet aspect, whatever, I work with clients on a spectrum of low carb through carnivore. My goal with clients diet wise is to be following something that's sustainable and gives them results. So some clients do want to stay on carnivore forever, and that's great. Other clients want to use carnivore as we all know, the best elimination diet and be able to get to a point where they can have foods that are maybe irritating their gut at this point, but they can have an avocado and it's not going to give them the stomach ache for 4 days. And they want to get to that point where they can have that option. So it's always with the supplements, the protocols, it's always looking at labs, figuring out what somebody needs based on their body, their metabolism, what's going on, where are the imbalances. I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for kind of where things aren't working the best way they could be working optimally, not just normally. Normal ranges are for sick people. Sick people. Optimal ranges is what we want to look for. So then there are protocols. There's different phases. They're for a certain period of time, 30, 60, 90 days. There's a start date. There's an end date. There's a purpose. They know why they're taking what they're taking. They know what the plan is, and like you said, there's an end date, so there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So the goal for that is so that they aren't going to have to take all the things forever. We just want to kind of direct the body on where it should be going because for whatever reason it's taken a detour, and we just need to say, hey, no, go this way, go this way, go that way, and then kind of go from there. Longer term, full disclosure, I do have some clients who want to stay on a couple things for a longer period of time because it makes them feel good, or maybe they're going to take some immune support and vitamin D in the wintertime, and they're going to do some liver support in the springtime. So there's also things that they can do seasonally. And that is, of course, with, learning how to fine tune their macros, their diet. Again, seasonally with the macros as well can be helpful too. So that's just like a little preview, if you will, but hopefully that helps people understand because yes, you're right. There are a lot of supplements. And I do want to make one other point with that. So most supplements, full disclosure, they are herbs or other nutrients that we take in a supplement form. What many don't realize is that they're extracts or they're the small part, the most active part of whatever dare I use the word plant, right? Or herb. You're not eating the entire stalk of celery and the kale leaf with um, the stem and all the anti-nutrients that come with it. So I think we have to remember that as far as just in general, when we hear supplement, we hear people talking like supplements are bad, herbs are bad, et cetera, et cetera. So.
And someone asked, when's your next weight loss accelerator class?
That will be happening fall, like early fall. I don't have the dates yet, but I do have a link that you can get on the waiting list. So, Courtney, I'll just give you like all the updated links, and if you are able to upload this to YouTube, like we were talking about, I'll have you put all those in the caption there.
Awesome. Okay, one last thing before we wrap it up. Now I'm getting the questions pop up. Someone's just asking, like, are you a nutritionist or what was your education path? Like, what is your title and all that?
So I have a few a few titles. My undergrad is in psychology, and then I have various functional medicine and functional nutrition certifications. So what's available now from a functional health perspective, just as far as education, is so much different. There's so many more things available now than there were 20 years ago when I started. But board certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, functional blood work specialist, Kalish method practitioner, and a handful of other peptide therapies treatment and a handful of other things as well. So
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, hopefully we can get this on YouTube so more people can hear all your message and your answers and all that. So thank you so much for taking time to join us.
okay, talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.